program contains mature themes, nudity, coarse language, and explicit discussions on sexuality. Viewer discretion is advised.
As an artist, you're trying to expand the boundaries of what you normally work on. Otherwise, you become bored and complacent. I'm not drawn to pretty pictures. I'm drawn to art that's challenging and would normally be considered sort of repulsive. But there's a certain beauty to it also, an undeniable beauty. I've been drawing my whole life, so I started at about 3 years old, and then I started painting in watercolor at around 8 years old. My mother's an artist, so she was always encouraging us and, you know, putting pencils in our hands as soon as we could hold anything. Every kid is into sort of fantastical imagery and, you know, anything that's imaginative, and I was a really imaginative kid. And I think that I was just really influenced by surrealism, really drawn to it. I'll take a general theme and then I'll build an image around that theme or that idea. It sort of borders on surrealism, but more on symbolism. Some people love it and find it, you know, fascinating and kind of, I guess, sort of a really wonderful exploration of a world that is infinite, and there are so many elements that can be looked at, and you sort of go deeper and deeper into the image and find more and more things. But some people think that it ends up looking like it's deconstructed or violent somehow, and like nothing could be further from the truth. It has nothing to do with that. Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places, it was inspired by a relationship that I was in that lasted roughly a year. I had started working on images at the time when I was in this relationship. And each image ended up basically kind of mirroring the dynamic that I was in, kind of in a pretty uncanny, unusual way. So this painting is Salome, and she was in love with John the Baptist, and she wanted to be with him, but they had these ideological differences that made it impossible. It's essentially the dynamic that I was in. So it's really to represent this clutching desire to grab that which is ungrabbable. This painting was done because I was thinking of leaving my relationship, which I did ultimately. So this is me kind of playing with the idea, wrapping my head around the idea of kind of letting someone go. And he's holding a doll. It's sort of a puppet in his hands, and then he's got scissors ready to cut the strings. And when you're in a relationship with someone, you're basically, you know, you're sort of looking over your shoulder going, is this where I should be, or should I be over there instead? Like, should I free myself up? Because you miss out on a lot of things when you're in a relationship. So that's what all these elements represent, like love and pain, immobility, time, romance. The point of Venus Envy was to represent elements of womanhood that really covers the whole gamut, right? Like, she's holding a piece of fruit that kind of has a vulva-like sort of suggestion to it. There's menstruation that is represented in it. The apple in the shoulder is Eve, so she sort of represents the transgression of all of humanity. The snails that are mingling together, I just find snails to be particularly erotic somehow, so I don't know, I just put that in there. And then the, you know, the breasts with the valves and the milk ducts and representing reproduction. And then, of course, there's the womb, which is a whole ecosystem in itself. I do a lot of pregnant women because, well, because that's a question, like, you know, that to have kids or not have kids. For women, it's a bit of a touchier issue because time-wise, there's a certain limit, and so you have to make that decision within that window, and that window closes pretty quickly. I think that as far as combining elements, there are particular elements that will be relevant to the subject, and then sometimes there will just be an impulse to put a certain element in there. This is going to sound really, really kind of tacky. I don't know, it's just going to sound kind of corny to say, but there's almost, it's like poetry where you take different words and put them together to convey an idea. And these are this exact same thing, but it's just done through separate elements. A painting is like an ink blot test, so whatever you see in it is really indicative of where your headspace is at. And so, you know, I can explain what I meant, but it kind of takes away some of the impact when somebody knows what it is that I was talking about.